smuggling, royal executions, Vatican exorcisms, high-stakes naval espionage, human medical experiments, and a multi-hundred-billion-dollar global addiction that fundamentally altered the sleep cycle of human civilization. None of these ingredients are listed on the cardboard cup of your morning latte, but they define the exact biological and geopolitical birth of the world's most influential beverage. Today, coffee is the second most traded legal commodity on planet Earth, standing right alongside crude oil. Over 2 billion cups of coffee are consumed across the globe every single day. The global industry generates hundreds of billions of dollars annually, fueling the nervous systems of entire continents. Yet at its core, coffee is a biochemical illusion. In the natural wild, caffeine is not designed for human pleasure. It is a potent chemical neurotoxin evolved by the coffea plant to paralyze and kill herbivorous insects that attempt to eat its leaves and seeds. However, inside the human brain, caffeine executes a brilliant molecular hack. Structurally, caffeine closely resembles adenosine, the natural chemical compound that accumulates in your central nervous system throughout the day to signal fatigue and induce sleep. When you consume coffee, caffeine molecules travel through your bloodstream, cross the blood-brain barrier, and plug directly into your brain's adenosine receptors without activating them. By blocking those receptors, coffee tricks your brain into believing it is not tired, triggering a surge of dopamine and adrenaline. Before coffee, human society operated on natural circadian rhythms, sleeping when the sun set and waking when it rose. Coffee systematically severed humanity from solar time, powering the shift into artificial clock time, night shifts, and industrial productivity. This global neurological transformation began over 1,000 years ago in the dense, shaded cloud forests of East Africa. Sometime around the 9th century, in the lush highland forests of the Kaffa region in modern-day southwestern Ethiopia, a young goat herder named Kaldi noticed something deeply strange about his flock. After grazing on bright crimson berries hanging from wild, glossy evergreen shrubs, his goats began leaping, bleating loudly, and refusing to rest as darkness fell. Intrigued, Kaldi consumed several of the red berries himself. Within minutes, his physical exhaustion vanished, replaced by an intoxicating surge of mental clarity and physical energy. While historians debate whether Kaldi was a real historical figure or an allegorical legend, botanical evidence confirms that wild Coffea arabica originated in these exact Ethiopian rainforests. Long before roasting or brewing existed, indigenous Oromo communities in Ethiopia crushed raw coffee berries, mixing the fat-rich seeds with animal fat to forge high-energy ration balls for long hunting expeditions. The pivotal transition from raw plant to hot beverage occurred inside a stone monastery. According to historical tradition, Kaldi brought the mysterious berries to an Islamic monk or Christian hermit, who condemned the stimulating fruit as the work of the devil and hurled the berries directly into a roaring stone hearth fire. As the seeds roasted within the embers, they released an aroma so rich and intoxicating that the monks scrambled to rake the glowing coals out of the fire. They crushed the roasted beans into a coarse powder, dissolved the grounds in boiling water, and drank the dark liquid. That night, the monks remained wide awake through hours of midnight prayers without a single nod of drowsiness. Word of the miracle plant spread rapidly through religious sanctuaries across the Horn of Africa. The black liquid was no longer a wild forest seed. It was about to become the divine fuel of empires. Crossing the Red Sea into the Arabian Peninsula, coffee evolved from a monastic remedy into a highly guarded national monopoly. By the 15th century, Sufi mystics in the mountain cities of Yemen embraced the beverage, naming it kahwa, an old Arabic word originally used for dark wine. Sufi brotherhoods consumed kahwa during long midnight devotional rituals called dhikra, using the heightened mental alertness to maintain spiritual focus and chant sacred names through the night. To the Sufis, coffee was not a casual social drink, but a sacred elixir that sharpened human consciousness to experience the divine. Recognizing its immense economic value, Yemeni governors transformed coffee into an organized agricultural industry. Farmers constructed elaborate stone terraces along the steep mountain slopes outside Sana'a, utilizing mountain springs to irrigate the world's first commercial coffee plantations. The small coastal port city of Mocha on the Red Sea became the absolute epicenter of the global coffee trade. For over 2 centuries, every single coffee bean sold to merchants across Africa, Asia, and Europe was shipped exclusively through Mocha's harbor. To this day, the term Mocha remains permanent shorthand for quality coffee. The Yemeni rulers maintained a ruthless, airtight monopoly over the plant. To prevent foreign nations from growing their own crops, Yemeni authorities established a strict law. Before any coffee beans were allowed to leave the port of Mocha, they were boiled in water or partially roasted. This rendered the internal embryos dead, guaranteeing that no viable seed could ever be planted on foreign soil. Exporting a living, fertile coffee plant was classified as high treason, punishable by immediate death. As coffee shipments sailed from Mocha into the heart of the Ottoman Empire, the beverage triggered an urban social revolution that terrified political rulers. By the early 16th century, vibrant public establishments called kahvehanes, or coffee houses, opened across Istanbul, Cairo, Damascus, and Aleppo. Unlike dark taverns serving alcohol, Ottoman coffee houses were bright, bustling intellectual spaces where citizens gathered to drink coffee, listen to classical poetry, play chess, debate theology, and openly criticize the ruling sultan and his court. Religious authorities and political rulers viewed coffee houses as dangerous dens of sedition. In 1511, the governor of Mecca attempted a total prohibition of coffee, declaring it an intoxicating substance forbidden by Islamic law. The ban caused immediate public riots, forcing the sultan in Cairo to execute the governor and restore coffee rights. The most terrifying crackdown occurred in the 1630s under the brutal Ottoman Sultan Murad IV. Determined to crush political dissent, Murad IV banned coffee entirely. He shut down all coffee houses across Istanbul and decreed that anyone caught drinking coffee would be beaten for their first offense. Second-time offenders were sewn inside leather sacks and thrown directly into the freezing waters of the Bosphorus Strait. Historical accounts describe the Sultan walking the streets of Istanbul, disguised as an ordinary citizen at night, carrying a massive broadsword to personally decapitate coffee drinkers caught in the act. Yet despite extreme violence, the public's desire for coffee proved impossible to extinguish. Meanwhile, the Yemeni monopoly was about to be shattered by an act of daring religious smuggling. In 1670, a legendary Indian Sufi saint named Baba Budan embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca. While traveling through Yemen, he tasted coffee and became determined to bring the plant home to India. Knowing the penalty was death, Baba Budan surreptitiously slipped into a Yemeni coffee farm at night and selected 7 fertile, raw green coffee seeds. The number 7 was sacred in Islamic tradition. He strapped the seeds directly against his bare chest, hiding them beneath his thick religious robes. Evading armed inspectors at the port of Mocha, Baba Budan boarded a ship and successfully sailed across the Arabian Sea to southern India. He planted those 7 smuggled seeds in the fertile Chandragiri hills of Karnataka, creating the very first coffee plantations outside the Middle East and breaking Yemen's 200-year monopoly forever. By the early 17th century, Venetian merchants introduced coffee to Catholic Europe, triggering an immediate religious panic inside the Vatican. Catholic priests in Rome denounced coffee as the bitter, dark invention of Satan. They argued that because the beverage originated in the Muslim world, drinking it would corrupt Christian souls, and they petitioned Pope Clement VIII to issue a papal ban. Before making his final decree, Pope Clement requested a cup to taste the dark liquid himself. Taking a slow sip, the Pope reportedly smiled and declared that Satan's drink was so delicious it would be a tragedy to let non-believers have exclusive use of it. He officially blessed and baptized the beverage, granting Catholic Europe divine permission to consume coffee without fear of damnation. The papal approval unleashed a coffeehouse explosion across Western Europe that fundamentally reshaped modern journalism, insurance, and financial markets. In England, the first coffeehouse opened in Oxford in 1652. Within decades, London alone housed over 3,000 coffee establishments. These spaces were famously nicknamed penny universities because for the price of a single penny cup of coffee, any man could enter, read the latest printed newspapers, and engage in high-level intellectual debates with scientists, politicians, and philosophers. Different coffee houses specialized in different disciplines. Edward Lloyd's Coffee House on Tower Street became the meeting place for ship captains, merchants, and investors, giving birth to Lloyd's of London, the world's premier insurance market. Jonathan's Coffee House on Exchange Alley became the physical origin of the London Stock Exchange, where traders gathered around wooden tables to buy and sell corporate shares. Scientists like Isaac Newton spent hours in London coffee houses discussing physics and calculus, replacing the sluggish lethargy of alcohol with caffeine-induced mental focus. In Paris, the legendary Café de Procope opened in 1686, becoming the intellectual incubator for the French Enlightenment. Philosophers like Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Denis Diderot sat at marble tables, drafting revolutionary ideas. Voltaire reportedly consumed 40 to 50 cups of coffee every single day. relying on the constant chemical stimulation to fuel his massive literary output. However, not all European monarchs welcomed the new black liquid. In Sweden, King Gustav III held a paranoid conviction that coffee was a toxic poison that ruined public health and destroyed the nation's economy through imports. Sweden attempted to ban coffee 5 separate times during the 18th century, imposing heavy fines and confiscating cups and coffee pots from private homes. To scientifically prove that coffee was lethal, King Gustav III ordered an unprecedented medical experiment conducted on a pair of identical twin brothers sentenced to death for murder. The king commuted their death sentences on one condition. One twin was forced to drink 3 large pots of tea every single day for the rest of his life, while the second twin was forced to drink 3 large pots of coffee every single day under strict medical supervision. 2 prominent royal physicians were appointed to monitor which twin died first. The result of the experiment was an absolute embarrassment for the monarchy. First, both royal physicians died of old age and natural causes. Years later, the twin forced to drink tea died first at the age of 83. The coffee-drinking twin outlived them all, surviving in perfect health. Sweden eventually abandoned its bans, evolving into one of the highest per capita coffee-consuming nations on Earth today. While coffee houses transformed European intellect, the global supply remained tightly constrained. European empires realized that whoever controlled the cultivation of coffee would command the wealth of the tropics. The Dutch East India Company took the first step, acquiring living plants from Mocha and establishing massive colonial plantations on the island of Java in present-day Indonesia. Java became so synonymous with production that its name entered the English language as slang for coffee. However, the most dramatic biological theft in history was executed by a French naval officer in 1723. His name was Gabriel de Clieu. Stationed on the Caribbean island of Martinique, de Clieu traveled to the Royal Botanical Gardens in Paris, where he acquired a single living cutting from a coffee tree gifted to King Louis XIV by the Dutch. De Clieu boarded a French merchant vessel to transport the delicate plant across the Atlantic Ocean, keeping it inside a glass-covered box on the ship's deck. The voyage was a catastrophic disaster. The ship was ambushed and chased by Tunisian pirates. A violent Atlantic storm nearly destroyed the vessel, tearing away a branch of the coffee plant. To make matters worse, a jealous passenger attempted to sabotage the mission, trying to rip the plant from its container during a night fight on deck. As the ship drifted into equatorial calm, fresh drinking water ran dangerously low. The captain imposed strict water rationing, threatening to let passengers die of thirst. To save the fragile plant, Gabriel de Clieu made an extraordinary sacrifice. Every single day for weeks, he surrendered the vast majority of his personal daily drinking water ration, pouring his own precious fresh water over the roots of the coffee plant while going severely dehydrated himself. De Clieu arrived in Martinique, sunburnt, emaciated and weak, but the coffee plant survived. He planted the cutting in Martinique's rich volcanic soil, guarding it with armed sentries. Within 50 years, that single surviving plant multiplied into 18 million coffee trees across the Caribbean, providing the genetic foundation for nearly all coffee grown in Central and South America today. Yet the world's greatest coffee superpower was created through an entirely different tactic: seduction. In 1727, the Portuguese colonial government in Brazil realized that their vast tropical territory possessed ideal soil for coffee, but they lacked living seeds. The French in neighboring French Guiana strictly guarded their plants, refusing to sell a single seed. Brazil dispatched a handsome, charming military officer named Francisco de Melo Palheta to French Guiana under the guise of mediating a routine diplomatic border dispute. Palheta executed his real mission with calculated charm. During official banquets in Cayenne, he initiated a secret romantic affair with the wife of the French colonial governor. When the diplomatic negotiations concluded, the governor's wife presented Palheta with a large farewell bouquet of rare exotic flowers at a public state dinner. Hidden deep inside the center of the bouquet were dozens of fertile, living coffee seeds and fresh cuttings. Palheta smuggled the bouquet across the border into Brazil, planting the seeds in the northern province of Para. From those smuggled seeds, coffee cultivation expanded south into the fertile red soils of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. By the mid-19th century, Brazil transformed into the largest coffee producer on Earth, harvesting over 1/3 of the world's total supply, a title it has maintained uninterrupted for nearly 200 years. However, this explosive expansion came at a devastating human cost. The rapid growth of massive coffee estates, known as fazendas, across Brazil, Haiti, Martinique and Java, was fueled almost entirely by the transatlantic slave trade. Hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans were forced into brutal manual labor, clearing dense virgin rainforests, digging hillside trenches, and harvesting coffee cherries by hand under the scorching equatorial sun. Conditions on Haitian coffee plantations were so horrific that they sparked the historic Haitian Revolution of 1791. In Brazil, coffee wealth became the primary economic pillar that kept human slavery legal longer than anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere, until abolition was finally forced in 1888. The sweet, invigorating morning ritual of Western cities was directly sustained by centuries of human bondage. While colonial plantations expanded across the tropics, a political protest in North America permanently cemented coffee as the national beverage of a new superpower. In December 1773, American colonists boarded British ships in Boston Harbor, dumping 342 chests of East India Company tea into the freezing water to protest taxation without representation. Following the Boston Tea Party, drinking tea was instantly branded an unpatriotic act of treason against the revolutionary cause. Continental Congress delegates, revolutionary organizers, and ordinary citizens renounced British tea, adopting coffee as their daily patriotic alternative. Historic establishments like the Merchants Coffee House in New York and the Green Dragon in Boston became the operational headquarters where the Founding Fathers planned the American Revolution. To this day, the United States remains the largest single consumer market for coffee on Earth, drinking over 400 million cups every single day. During the 19th and 20th centuries, industrialization and warfare transformed coffee from an artisanal drink into a standardized military asset. During the American Civil War, the Union Army recognized that coffee was essential for soldier endurance. Union troops were issued 36 pounds of green coffee beans per year as part of their standard field rations. Soldiers carried personal brass coffee grinders built directly into the stocks of their rifles or crushed beans using heavy rocks. They roasted green beans over campfires in tin mess cups and brewed coffee at dawn before marching into battle. In contrast, the Confederate South, cut off from imports by the Union naval blockade, suffered from severe coffee starvation. Southern troops attempted to brew substitutes from roasted chicory root, acorns, and sweet potatoes, but these lacked caffeine. Union soldiers wrote more about coffee in their wartime diaries than they wrote about combat, weapons, or strategy, with many officers concluding that reliable access to hot coffee was a decisive strategic factor in the North's victory. In the 20th century, the World Wars created the modern instant coffee industry. During World War I, the United States military purchased the entire domestic output of early instant coffee manufacturers to supply troops in the mud of European trenches, popularizing the term "Cup of Joe," named after Secretary of the Navy Josephus Daniels. During World War II, the military commissioned massive contracts with companies like Nescafé and Maxwell House to produce billions of single-serve instant coffee packets for field ration kits. Returning soldiers brought their instant coffee habits home to newly built American suburbs, establishing coffee as the default morning beverage of the post-war era. Simultaneously, industrial factories introduced the standardized coffee break, realizing that granting workers a 15-minute mid-morning caffeine pause dramatically reduced workplace accidents and increased assembly line efficiency. Coffee was no longer just a luxury or a revolutionary drink, it was the indispensable chemical fuel that synchronized the modern industrial workforce. As mass corporate production expanded during the 1960s and 70s, the global coffee industry faced a severe crisis of quality and biological fragility. To maximize corporate profits, mega roasters blended cheap, low-grade Robusta beans with Arabica, over-roasting the beans and vacuum-sealing them in metal cans for supermarket shelves. By 1970, American supermarket coffee had become weak, bitter, and stale. For the first time in history, per capita coffee consumption in the Western world began to plummet as younger generations rejected the watery beverage. The rebirth of coffee came from a single storefront in Seattle, Washington. In 1971, three friends opened a small shop called Starbucks in Pike Place Market, selling high-quality, whole-bean Arabica coffee imported from microclimate farms. In 1983, a young marketing director named Howard Schultz traveled to Milan, Italy. Walking into a traditional Italian espresso bar, he observed the theatrical art of the barista, the rich crema of fresh espresso shots, and the vibrant community gathering around the counter. Schultz acquired Starbucks, transforming it from a local bean retailer into a global cafe chain that made coffee aspirational again. This triggered the third wave coffee movement, elevating coffee into an artisanal craft similar to fine wine. Modern consumers began learning about altitude, washing processes, and single-origin flavor profiles from Colombia, Ethiopia, Guatemala, and Kenya. Yet as the global coffee industry generates over $400 billion annually, supporting 125 million livelihoods, it faces a silent biological threat that once wiped out an entire nation's agricultural economy. In 1869, the island of Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka, was the premier coffee supplier to the British Empire. Suddenly, a devastating fungal plant disease called Himalaya vastratrix, or coffee leaf rust, invaded the island. The yellow fungus stripped the leaves off every coffee tree across Ceylon, completely destroying the nation's plantations within 2 decades. Unable to stop the biological blight, British planters abandoned coffee entirely, ploughing under their ruined fields and replanting the island with tea, permanently altering British drinking culture. Today, climate change, rising equatorial temperatures, severe droughts, and the resurgence of coffee rust threaten over 60% of wild coffee species across the globe. Agricultural geneticists are racing against time, exploring resilient wild species like Coffea liberica and developing climate-resistant hybrids to preserve the future of the crop. From a wild neurotoxin growing in ancient Ethiopian cloud forests to sacred Sufi night vigils in Yemeni sanctuaries. From high-stakes naval espionage off the coast of Martinique to a seductive bouquet of flowers in French Guiana. From Civil War campfires and industrial assembly lines to artisanal espresso bars and genetic climate laboratories. Coffee is far more than a simple hot morning beverage sitting on your desk. It is a 500-year-old survivor, an intercontinental black liquid forged by human ambition, religious controversy, military conflict, and biological resilience. The next time you lift a warm cup of coffee to your lips and feel that familiar surge of alertness, take a moment to reflect on the long historical journey inside your glass. You are not just drinking a beverage, you are tasting 500 years of human history fighting back. If you enjoyed this deep documentary investigation into the hidden history of everyday food, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment telling us which crop we should investigate next, and share this video with a fellow coffee lover.